Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Coffee and Current Events. Today I have a very interesting mapping update for you. We're going to be talking about a lot of interesting developments that have been taking place all over the front line in Ukraine. We have a lot of big news about the Ukrainian offensive and the Russian offensive, so stay tuned for this video. Watch the full thing through and find out things you likely did not know previously. As usual, we're going to start with the Ukrainian offensive, and that means we're going to start from the Zaporozhye area, this area in southern Ukraine. Along the entire front in southern Ukraine, there is fierce fighting typically almost every single day. However, we have noticed an odd kind of silence around Pirohaki and Zherbianki, this front right here. There have been recent Ukrainian attacks, but it's not been anywhere as fierce or tumultuous as the attacks across the other areas of the front line. The area around Zherbianki remains practically unchanged. This map currently has the status of the forces in the territory they control, but it's marked on the 25th of July. It is the 26th of July right now, but we're going to use this map and we'll give it an update later on today as well. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning of July. Okay, the reason why I want to show you guys, sorry about that. This is the 1st of July. This is how the map's updated, and we're going to go all the way to the 25th, and you're going to see that there hasn't really been major changes. Ukrainians have pushed the Russians out of some fields. It looks like about 2.5. And that's about what we got right here. So the lines are practically unchanged, and the Russians seem to be holding the front here. Now, if we move on to Robotine, it's a little different. Actually, it's a lot different. I mean, if you look down here, the front is pretty tense. We have received recent updates of a massed Ukrainian assault. Some of the Russian sources are saying it consisted of about 20 armored vehicles attacking Robotine this morning. Ukrainian time, the 26th of July, okay? And they attacked Robotine. Now, the Ukrainians have made recent gains in Robotine just within the past few days. If we go back to the 23rd of July, this is the situation, and then we go back to the 25th, this is the current situation. I mean, this is the situation on the 25th of July, and the reason why that's important because the Ukrainians, it looks like the Ukrainians are attempting to flank Robotine. Robotine is an important town. As you can see, it is directly connected via road to Novoprokopivka, and if the Ukrainians capture Robotine and Novoprokopivka, they will be basically at the first line of Russian defense. That's very important because that means the real fighting can begin. I mean, the fighting up until now has been pretty serious and legitimate, but may I remind you of the fact that the Ukrainians have yet to actually reach the main line of Russian defense. They are currently fighting in the security zone. And so if they take Robotine and Novoprokopivka, they'll actually be at the first line of defense, and the real part of the counteroffensive, the reality, the future of the counteroffensive will be decided at the Russian lines of defense, the main lines of defense. So there was a fierce Ukrainian attack on Robotine. We will keep you updated on what's going on there. And Coffee and Current Events are going to be watching very closely what happens here on the report. We're having another update coming out later on today. If we move on to Velika Novosilica, the Ukrainians are still continuing assaults near Priutne, and it looks as if they still continue some assaults near Staromayorske. These cities are really important. As you can see at the beginning of this counteroffensive, the Ukrainians launched an assault directly from Vremivka to Neskushne, Starozheve, Blagodatne, and then Makarivka, and from there they also taken Rivnopil and other settlements as well. So they've now reached the area near Priutne. They're pretty focused on this town. We've been seeing a lot of updates of Ukrainian forces attacking here consistently. And there's pretty serious fighting near Priutne. If we go back over the days, you can see how this map has evolved. This is the 16th of July. And if we go all the way down back to the 25th, you can see the Ukrainians have gained ground near Priutne and the Russians have pushed back in a counterattack. I think the Russians are trying to avoid this salient. I'm going to use this in a market. This salient right here from collapsing, because if the Ukrainians are able to flank the Russians a little more, they can actually cause this entire salient to collapse. The Ukrainians flank from here. You can see where the cursor's pointing. They flank from here. This entire salient can collapse, and the Russian force in Priutne will be in a very precarious situation. So when we want to start on Mayorske, as you can see, the map has not really changed. I mean, if we go back, this is once again the 16th of July. This is obviously Staromayorske. If we zoom in, we'll see that around the city, there has not really been much change all the way to the 25th of July. So the Russians seem to be holding their positions there, as well as Orozhane. Now, we're going to go to the Bakhmut front because a lot of crazy stuff is happening here. I mean, the Ukrainians are actually experiencing pretty significant success near Bakhmut. The Ukrainian forces recently seem to have shifted a major part of their combat capability for this offensive towards Bakhmut, and they are experiencing radically different success there than they are in other areas. In other areas, the Ukrainians are mostly attacking and getting bombarded into oblivion, literally, and they're losing a lot of troops, a lot of armored vehicles. As we can see in the south near Klishivka, the Ukrainians have launched multiple attacks. There was fierce combat for Klishivka because, as you can see, this town is very important. It is literally the flank of Bakhmut. The Ukrainians in Klishivka, they can flank Bakhmut, and also the town of Andriivka has had multiple Ukrainian attacks. Well, yesterday I posted a video, and in that video I said that the Ukrainian forces have likely entered this area area of Klishivka, the southern area of Klishivka. Well, there are current updates saying that the Russian forces may have completely left this settlement. The settlement of Klishivka currently seems to be in the gray zone. There is some evidence suggesting Russians control the northern portion of Klishivka, but there are some people saying that the Russians have left. If this is the case, this is not good because the Russian forces are losing a majorly important town on the flanks of Bakhmut. And the Ukrainians are experiencing pretty significant success. Despite the fact that Klishivka is a small village, it is very important. If the Ukrainians are able to roll past Klishivka, if they're able to roll past here to here, they will literally be on the flanks of Bakhmut. If they're able to push far, they'll just get worse and worse. I think some of the Ukrainian commentators are talking about Andriivka fell. However, there's not enough evidence to say Andriivka fell as well. In fact, the evidence seems to suggest that it's still in Russian hands. It is worth noting, however, that the Russians do have substantial fortifications right behind Bakhmut. So Bakhmut does not seem to be the main line of Russian defense. Once again, this area near Klishivka is a security zone, and this is not the main line of Russian defense. Behind Bakhmut, if the Ukrainians were to hypothetically capture Bakhmut, behind Bakhmut there are significant Russian trenches. Another factor to consider is that Russian forces do have substantial trenches past Klishivka. So the Ukrainians take Klishivka, they have made major progress towards flanking Bakhmut. That does not in any way mean Bakhmut will fall, and it doesn't mean a salient collapse either. The Russians have trenches behind that, and as we've seen, the Russians are pretty good at holding their trenches, that I don't think the salient will collapse. I think Klishivka may fall to the Ukrainians. I think it's actually quite likely now. I don't think a breakthrough near Bakhmut is imminent, but we'll keep an eye on it. If we go to the north of Bakhmut near Soledar, the Ukrainian forces have actually tried a pretty smart maneuver. They've tried to cause a collapse of this entire salient, it seems, because they launched attacks from Rozdolivka and Orikova Vasilivka right here. In other words, what the Ukrainians were doing was this. They were launching attacks from this direction, most likely with the goal of breakthrough near Soledar. Also, they're launching attacks near this direction from Orikova Vasilivka right here, and as you can see, their attacks are from near Soledar all the way to here. That can cause salient to collapse. It's a flanking move. It's a pretty smart move. They also launched attacks near Berkivka. Those assaults, for the most part, have been repelled. But if the Ukrainians press that and they do break through, it will seriously complicate the situation for the Russians, not only in Bakhmut, but in Soledar and Krasnohora and a lot of other important cities around the area. Now, up to the north, the situation is dramatically different. The Russians are on the offensive in the north, and they have made very serious gains. Okay, essentially what the Russians have done is they've actually performed an offensive. In the north, the Russians have launched a substantial offensive, and I want you to pay close attention to what happened. This is the extent of the Russian advance, right there. Now, if we go back to the 20th of July, okay, this was the Russian lines. Now, I want you to pay very close attention. Within 5 days, the Russians advanced this far. Keep that in mind. If we go back to the 20th, once again, this is the 20th, and we go farther to the 25th, you'll quickly see how far the Russians advanced. If you put a marker where this happened and you go all the way to the current line of defense, that is almost an 8-kilometer advance within 5 days, 7.63 kilometers to be exact. Okay, and this is very significant because we've seen that the Ukrainians, in some of their deepest parts of their offensive, have barely managed to penetrate 4 kilometers after a month of fighting. The Russians found a weak spot and penetrated over 7.6 kilometers within 5 days. So as you can see in its current state, this Russian offensive is looking quite successful. If we go to the north near Kupiansk, the Russian forces are also launching an offensive from here. It looks as if they're launching a small-scale offensive towards Kupiansk, which many of you well know is a very important railroad hub running in major sections of Ukraine and very strategic important locations. Now, I don't know if the Russian offensive near Kupiansk is actually a legitimate offensive to take the city. I think if there would be more of a focus here. I actually think the Kupiansk offensive may have been a distraction offensive from the offensive we've recently seen in the Svatove area where the Russians advanced almost 8 kilometers. I think that was a distraction for that. So I don't know if the Kupiansk offensive is significant. I mean, if we go over the past few days, if we go all the way back to, let's go even back to the 17th of July, the Russians have only gained that until the 25th. So I don't think it's a legitimate offensive. It doesn't seem legitimate at all. And I think it's actually a distraction offensive. That's all for today. Be sure to subscribe to Coffee and Current Events. That way you're not missing out on any updates we have coming at you every single day. We produce a mapping update every day where we strive to give unbiased, factual information about what's actually going on the battlefield in Ukraine. Stay informed, subscribe to Coffee and Current Events. God bless you, and I'll catch you next time.